And next batter.
Next batter. Did you watch baseball last night?
Oh, I've been in.
You're all in again?
I'm not all in. I'm just enjoying it.
You're there. You're not in the lounge chair 20 feet away from the pool. You're not in the pool, but are you sitting on the edge with your feet in?
Yeah, well, my theory is that regular season baseball is like video game entertainment shit. But when it comes to the chips are down, they actually have to play the correct way, and the teams that play the best win. And
it's true.
There's not as much nonsense going on during these games in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I mean, it is a nice period. Like, what was it yesterday? No, it's 2 days ago. I mean, the Royals are obviously in the playoffs, and the whole freaking city shuts down in the middle of the day. Hayden was like, "Yeah, they turned it on at school." I mean, it's like everybody. And baseball's the only thing they do that for. Like, they don't do it for March Madness because there's so many teams all over, and that they could be gone the next day. It's really not that huge, but they put under because it comes on at like great times of day too, which I can get behind. I mean, I'm not a huge baseball guy, as you know, but I mean, middle of the day sports, that's kind of my jam.
No, it's nice. Yeah, that's good. I mean, there's something about regional loyalty and like just camaraderie that I think is a good thing, man.
Yeah,
shut it down. I mean, what else are they gonna learn?
Hayden wants to be Bobby Witt for Halloween.
Oh, he better get faster.
Dude's a machine, man. I don't even know much about baseball, but he seems like he's the real deal.
Yeah.
Enough about baseball. It's October 3rd, the year 2024. Welcome aboard, everybody. You are listening to the Crushing Iron Podcast, and this is episode 803.
803, yeah. And I know we're done talking about baseball. I forgot to mention this last time. I wanted to just give a tribute out to Pete Rose, the greatest hitter.
Yeah, yep.
Of all time, the hit leader in Major League Baseball, who got shunned from the Hall of Fame for his entire life because he was gambling. Yep. And I personally used to work in the minor league baseball, and I was around the whole system a lot. All those guys gamble. This is like a Lance Armstrong thing. And they just basically held him up and shit on him for his whole life. He wrote he wrote several apology letters, I think, but I don't know. I don't know how this commissioner of baseball can live with himself, to be honest. It's just gross.
I'm with you, and I again, I'm not a huge baseball guy, but stuff like that just like irritates me because you see the world we live in now, and ESPN has like their own bet app.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, there's sponsored signs and gambling in stadiums now, and it's just like, come on.
Yeah, the early, it's funny, right? The early adopters get crushed, and then big companies and then everyone else finds out that it's actually a pretty awesome, lucrative way to make money. And as soon as everyone finds out it's a lucrative way to make money, well, then it becomes mainstream, and then it becomes accepted because you can do it, and you can make money.
Yeah, it's like all these guys sitting in prison for smoking pot. And dealing pot.
Yeah, I was going to go there, but I was trying not to. But yeah, it's so true. It's just like they've been in jail for 50, 60 years for. Yeah, it's that's totally whacked out.
But anyway, Pete Rose epitomized to me the way you're supposed to play baseball, and he represented that game as far as an on-field athlete better than just about anybody. Right. And you're not even going to have him in the Hall of Fame. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah,
I mean, think about 240, whatever it was, 4,200 hits or something. That's like
4,200.
20 seasons of 200 hits. Does anybody even get 200 hits anymore?
No.
Okay.
I mean, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure they don't. I mean, I think that is like the untouchable record.
God, it's mind-boggling to think about being healthy for that,
like,
especially the way he played. And Cal Ripken, yeah, forget it. Those guys, they stayed healthy. We can't even do a damn 5K and not be on the shelf for like a month.
Well, the thing is like half those, like I was reading like a chapter in a book of these about Lou Gehrig. It's like, and half the time they'd make it these double headers, and they had gotten like 3 hours of sleep. They're up at the casino, and they were still drinking like the morning before, and they didn't miss a game. And now, we just gotten soft, and then and amongst some other things. But yeah, we kind of hit the trifecta. You want to talk about nutrition and in politics real quick? We've already talked about some fringe level stuff. We could just or religion. We could just go all in today, and see what happens. No, we get 100. We'll do that on our 1,000th podcast. We'll go in and we'll kind of let it fly and release all the restraint we've showed for the last 803 episodes. We'll let it all hang out on episode 1000. But we appreciate you guys tuning in. It is a beautiful sunny Thursday morning here in Overland Park, Kansas. I'm sure it's just as beautiful where you are. I went out yesterday morning, and for the first time this year, I could see my breath when I went out to run, and it was glorious. It is easily the best time of year to run. It's fantastic. Yes, spring is great. Late winter is great, but you don't have those early, the fall seasonal EPO benefits of going from humid and hot to going out and getting like runs in. And it's just so nice to be outside, and people's attitude like immediately change when it gets like hoodie weather. Everybody's happy. Well, not everybody. Most people are happy, and it's an awesome time of year.
Yeah, it is.
It's been a while. I'm skipping our intro today because I know we're on a little bit of a time crunch, but we did pop into our Facebook group as we always do every 3 to 6 weeks. Whenever we kind of get the itch, we pop in there, do a little bit of a Q&A, let the community in there drive the discussion, let them ask a bunch of questions, and we'll do our best to answer through those. And I'm going to try to keep these short and sweet today so we can get through a lot of them. I think we got 13, 14 on queue, so we'll get rocking and rolling here today. First question, Grant Denny. This is an excellent question. If we were really wanting to tackle a lot of zone 1/zone 2 this offseason, what ratio of that would work? What ratio of that work would you recommend for each discipline? Excellent question. In terms of percentages to dedicate that to, that is a very wide range. I mean, I'll just kind of break it down into generally what you would see for, again, the average person. But again, none of us are average at all. I know people hate this answer as it depends, but it does. It all depends. And to say it doesn't depend is honestly just being irresponsible and telling you there's only one way to do it for everybody. But zone 1 for me, you shouldn't be wasting a ton of time in zone 1. Zone 1, again, that's more like active recovery or recovery in between intervals. That should be what your warm up looks like, what your cool down looks like, and what your rest interval looks like. Now there is a time where zone 1. I mean, you should never swim zone 1 in the water. Most people would fall to the bottom if they had to swim zone 1. Zone 1, though, in cycling and running, active recovery ride, great opportunity for zone 1. Like if you did a long run the day before, maybe an active recovery zone 1, or just spin the leg, just flushing thing out, promoting recovery, not trying to get fit. And then also, like I said, warm up and cool down. A great way to structure like a zone 2 workout, though, is warm up zone 1 and kind of do what I like to do is trying to keep people focused. People get bored with zone 2, and going to your percentage question, I'm not going to give that, because you could range anywhere from 65% to 90% of your overall training volume, depending on what kind of phase you're in, depending on what you need to work on the most. But when people hear zone 2, they think like boring, monotonous ride. But if you really want to focus on it, again, and the number one thing you do is to make sure you've identified exactly what your zone 1 and zone 2 is. Don't just guess. Don't just, throw it in Garmin and have them set it for you. Don't do 220, minus your age. Really figure out what the bottom and the top is on zone 1 and zone 2. Because a lot of people think they're in zone 2 and they're in zone 1. A lot of people think they're in zone 1, but they're in zone 2. And a lot of people think they're in middle zone 2, but they're actually in like upwards of zone 3. So figure out your zones. But then if you really want like a difficult workout, and this is one of those where athletes look at and they think it's going to be easy on paper, is, a breakdown of something like, I'll keep it short. Like do 60 minutes, do 10-minute zone 1 warm up, and then do 2 20-minute intervals of middle to high zone 2. Same cadence, no drop, because again, everyone's so into like, Tabata style workouts, HIIT style workouts, on and off, like keeping things energized, that they don't ever get that like steady state energy requirement that you have to keep your cadence the same, 80 to 85 to 90, and holding steady power. A lot of people struggle with that. And then when they struggle with that, they put it in ERG mode, and then they act like that's fixing the problem, but you're not the one holding it. So if you're holding like middle, it takes effort, and you have to stay in the moment, and you have to stay present and work at it. You have to stay focused. And then so you do 2 20-minute intervals like that. And then in the middle of those, take like a 5-minute, easy break to break up the cadence and the effort, but then also let your heart rate come down a little bit, let yourself refocus and do it again. It's actually a really challenging workout, but hugely beneficial. But the ratio, again, that's not something I'm going to throw out there. I mean, that's why I hate the 80-20 marketing. Is that some people should be like 90-10, some people should be 65-35. So it really just depends. And then again, if you're going to adjust things up and things back, you don't want to do only 65% in zone 2 swimming, cycling, and running all at one time and do 35% high intensity. You're going to be creating a tremendous amount of stress. You might want to go 90% zone 1, zone 2, 10% intensity in cycling, so you can actually then allow to do more intensity when you run. And that might go down to 65% zone 2, but you're 35% intensity if you got like a half marathon or marathon coming up. So there's a lot of ways to manipulate that. And again, really just figuring out like what you need to work on and how much of it you can handle. But those are some general ranges to shoot off of.
Yeah, I like everything you said there, man. I think to me, the interesting part of this is, when you mentioned that Tabata style workout, because it is like something that feels like you're actually doing more or whatever. But a lot of long course athletes, like you said, I mean, finding that right zone 2 number effort and then holding it, that's what long course racing is all about. And nobody really likes that, and then they wonder why the race feels harder than it should or something. And I just think it's one of those things where we got to figure out a way to kind of fall in love with zone 2, that mid to upper zone 2. And it's just one of those things that is not fun, but how do you make it fun, or how do you make it more intriguing, and realize that is the core and the essence, of racing like an Ironman, and getting really good and strong at that. And then, because I feel like, most people are really, with the Tabata thing, they can kind of just suck it up and bust it for a minute or 30 seconds or whatever, and then come back down and up and down. To me, that's just easier a lot of times. I think that's what it comes down to, is that people say it's boring, but it's actually hard to kind of stay there. They say it's boring, but they're, to really be on that fringe of, and I know a lot of our workouts, they will say active, be active. It's sort of not like overactive, but it's just active. It's not zone 1 kind of spinning. Zone 1 can kind of be more like a, build your ass calluses kind of workouts in a way.
Yeah.
But that zone 2 is like a little bit of that. You can still talk, but you can, somebody could tell if they're on the phone with you that you're doing something, kind of thing.
Exactly.
So it's just, to me, it's like, are you going to commit to that? Which, I mean, most people, anybody who's anybody will say that that's a hugely important part of endurance training. But it bores the shit out of us. So it's like, what are you, is this something you really like, or is this something you're,
Well, and that's just part of like the coaches. It shouldn't be, but it is. It's like part of our job is to keep athletes entertained. Because, the attention span has never been shorter. I feel like for everyone, from kids to adults, everyone wants things shorter. Everyone wants, things quicker. They don't want to do, even though the work is better for them, they don't want to do it because it's quote unquote boring. They want to be, as we call, entertained. But a great way, a tip for all of you out there that may be struggling with doing zone 2 is to break it up. I mean, a zone 2 range might be something as wide, depending on how high your FTP is and your threshold is. It might be 30 watts. So if you want to really do that, break it down into intervals and stay focused, right? And so let's say your zone is 170 to 200. and you want to do, a 30-minute or a 45-minute interval, but you think that's too long and it's too boring. So just split up into 5-minute segments. I used to do this all the time. I used to do everyone loves a ramp, but everyone loves to, they only want to do the ramp when it's an 8-minute FTP test, which is also garbage. But you can do that with zone 2. So do 5 minutes at 170, 5 minutes at 175, 5 minutes at 180, 5 minutes at 185, 5 minutes at 190, 5 minutes at 195 to get to 200. And then if you want it, you can either start over again for your next one, or you can do just a step down. You can take a rest interval, start at 190, work it back down as a cool down. Like, there's a lot of ways you can do that. We don't have to just be bored to death doing it. So find whatever way to still make sure you're hitting the numbers that you need to hit, but also, making sure that your attention span is also being massaged, because it's going to be a long winter if you don't. Joe Abreva, looking to do Triple T Triathlon next year, the short version, which equates to almost a half distance race over four races in 3 days. Any recommendations on how to prepare for such an event? You had a Wild Bill Calkins comment below. I've done the long version successfully twice with Mike, made both plans for me. Stuff like split runs, over distance training. I'm guessing your training would look like a 70.3, great topic, and a great race. Perfect early season goal to get you work through the winter. Yeah, I know you've done it, and then I've also had Tom Stewart did this last year. He did the short version. I think he was top 5 overall with the races combined. And Bill said it and gave away all your secret sauce, Mike. But it's just overloading. You can't train it for each individual race. You just train to be, resistant to fatigue. Because in a race like that, it's about how you recover and be ready for the next race. And I'm sure you'd agree, having already trained people for this, is to like when I've always done it's like, you want to be fast, but it only really matters how fast you are in your last race. If you're super fast in the first one, but you're so sore and you're so beat up, you haven't done longer stuff, then it's not going to matter. You have to be real resistant fatigue. You have to recover quickly, which means you have to be used to having a pretty, not a significant load, but yeah, pretty close to 70.3 load in terms of, and a lot of like condensed 2 to 3 day blocks. And then the biggest thing though, when you do this, is warming up and cooling down. The first race, you get that super sprint, go rest for a little bit, but then make sure you can get on your bike and do an easy spin later on in the day and cool down. And same thing with the warm up. Make sure you're warming up. So that's a super fun race. It used to be incredibly popular when you had the Sprint Olympic and 70.3 back to back to back. Not nearly as popular anymore, but a great option. And I think it's a great kind of, not a bucket list, but something to keep you engaged and do something different, throughout your triathlon calendar.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun working with Bill on that. And, we had a lot of back and forth on those types of things. And he's the kind of guy that, he's really good at listening to his body. So we may have some double runs or a double ride, whatever it is. And he'll maybe sub out at the night run for a elliptical or something. But he just kept, we kept building volume and keeping an eye on, not wearing out. But we are kind of, just kind of looping him up over the top of the umbrella of this whole thing and making sure he can handle it. And then obviously, like you said, there's a lot of little strategies that we talked about as to far to how to handle every race. And he loves to swim and he loves to get out of the water first or second in his age group. So he just went after the swim, but he worked hard on it going in. So there's just a lot. It's really kind of a cool thing to work into.
Yeah, and a fun thing to do. I think it's awesome. I think it would be great if more race management companies would offer stuff like that. Next one, Glenn Rolbecky. Coach Glenn, why is it so very hard to pick up swimming after not swimming for a few months? Feels like I've never swam before. Really asking for a friend. Because to me, it's very similar to if you haven't ran in a while. Like, your first few runs just feel clunky. Like, you feel like you got no rhythm, no flow, and you're just kind of like waddling your way down the street. Swimming is even more so like that, because any swimmer would tell you feel for the water is the most important thing. You have to have feel for the water. If you don't have feel for the water, you have nothing. And so the longer you're away from the water, the harder it is to get that feel back. And then you think about the shorter you're going to have that feel. So you might have it for a 25, but then you haven't swam for so long, so you've lost all your muscular endurance. So you can have a feel for like the first 25 or 50. You're like, it's back, baby, I'm back. And then your second 200 hits, and you're like, I'm not back. I'm still gone because your arms fatigue so quickly you can't hold the form that keeps the feel. And that's also why it's so important, like for adult onset swimmers, as we call them, in their tapering for like 70.3s full, really anything, any distance race, instead of going down to like 2 swims a week and like drastically reducing volume and intensity, if you have the feel, do whatever you got to do to keep it. So that might look like just doing 5 swims race week that are only 10 to 20 minutes long, 15 minutes long. It's not gonna create any fatigue. You just want to keep the feel. And again, like swimming, in order to know what to feel, what levers to move, and how to move them, and when to move them, that's swimming. That's also why it's so difficult. Is you've never had a feel for the water, you don't know what it is. That's hard to explain. But yeah, the longer you are away from it, the harder it is to get back. I mean, I know for me, like I haven't swam in a while. If I got in the pool today, I could probably crush a 25. And then I'd be like, I still got this. And then 2 100s later, my arms would be fatigued and I wouldn't be able to hold form, which is what is required to keep the feel. And then I'd be thrashing again and kind of feel like I'm moving my arms within water, but I'm not doing anything with them. And I think that's what a lot of people feel when they come back to swimming after a period of time of not doing it.
Yeah, Glenn's probably just not doing enough big gear work to compensate for big gear swimming. Hey, no, but seriously, when you think about, I always, these days now, whenever you talk about feel for the water, I always think about it in terms of like, you haven't been in the water, so you don't know what water feels. It's like you're a little rusty or something too. And I think of it in terms of, on the bike, if you take a long time and feel for the pedals, or running, feel for the ground, those types of things, I think are, if your body's not used to it or it's taking a long break off, it might feel a little bit weird. And, sometimes it's I don't know. It seems to me like when you get back in the water, it takes maybe, 3 or 4 times and then you're kind of back in, if you're in decent shape. But I think it's just kind of an overall kind of weird feeling. And you've kind of, you know how it is. You can get out of the pool one time and be like, I nailed it. I know where my arms go and everything. And you get back in the water and the next time you're like, what? I forgot everything I was thinking last time. So it's just kind of repetition to me. And I think just anything. I mean, I find that shit with reading. Like if I don't read for a couple months, I go in there and I'm just like distracted and can't focus and all that kind of stuff. So yeah. But what you said too, I just was trying to throw in kind of a different angle because, that's the thing, right? Is like we can, they say it's just like riding a bike, but when you're trying to actually do it in a good way or a powerful way, it's not as easy.
Yeah, it doesn't feel as smooth. And the same thing when you get on the bike, right? You have dead spots. You haven't spun in a while. You got dead spots in your pedal stroke. You just don't feel smooth.
You're not,
right?
You're not relaxed.
What's that?
Yeah, you're not relaxed,
Yeah, everything feels tense. It's just, I mean, the longer you stay away, the harder it is to come back. And that's kind of what we talked about on Tuesday. Aaron Super, how much should heavier athletes prioritize weight loss in the off season? How much difference will losing, say, 10 pounds make on swim, bike, and run times? That's an interesting question. I think weight is a very personal journey for most people. Some people have a lot of struggle. I mean, you and I talk a lot about this off air with certain athletes that we work with, Mike, but a lot of athletes have trouble getting weight off. And I have quite a few athletes that have trouble putting weight on. Weight looks very different for every person with their journey. I would, however, flip what I think you're trying to articulate here. And if you feel like you're heavier and you feel like you need to lose 10 pounds, please don't do it just to have an impact on your swim, bike, and run times. If you feel like you might be, if you feel or that being a little bit lighter is something that would impact your overall health better, do that. And I think that's an important thing to understand and realize that we'd like to focus so much on swim, bike, and run and what the impact is on that. But we should always, first and foremost, top of mind be what is best for my overall health, right? So if you think losing 10 or 15 pounds it's something that you need to do it for just how you're going to feel day to day. Maybe you'll sleep better. Maybe you won't be as fatigued. Maybe you'll like the way you look better. Don't do it to lose 10 or 12 seconds on your run pace. Do it because it's important to you to feel better and just be healthier, right? Like I had an athlete text me or email me last week about fueling, and she was just having a really, really, really hard time using the Saturday app and seeing how many like heaping tablespoons of sugar she was having to pour in a drink and then drink. And it didn't sit well with her. I said, well, just change up and there's plenty of other options to use. So again, like, we do triathlon, but we do that we don't do that a lot. So please focus on, again, I'm not telling you what to do here, but I would encourage you to look at it more in a total body, total health manner of how it can benefit me in my overall health in a positive way, because this is the only body you're ever going to have.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, as I get older, it does feel like it's tougher for me to kind of keep weight off. And I think one of the things I try to do is not think about it too much. I notice that when I'm training in the summer and I'm starting to really increase my volume for Ironman towards the end of the year, I think a lot of times, quote unquote, trying to, starve yourself or avoid, I think that actually creates more problems. So I think it's, when I'm training hard and I'm just kind of eating what I eat, and I just eat a lot more probably, but that's when I find out I feel like I'm starting to come together with my body and everything. And then just, one of the things that I always try to do is one of my big things is if I feel like I'm hungry, especially during all this training, I will always go for a glass of water first, or maybe two, and see if I'm really actually thirsty and not hungry. And because I think triathletes probably flirt with a chronic dehydration situation, and it's difficult for their system to handle, you know what I mean? Like, even I was listening to Pagash's coach the other day. He was talking about, if you're tired all the time, you might be just dehydrated, and it's just such a simple thing. But I think a lot of times we can confuse that with hunger. And so that's my thing, is always just kind of just keep training, try to, obviously, there's a gazillion different philosophies on dieting and everything like that and how to lose weight or whatever. But I just think the body needs its nutrition. And the more I was listening to this podcast to this morning, actually, they were talking about how, the FDA has approved like over 400 different synthetic ingredients for our food. And in Europe, maybe it's like 80 or something like that. So we're eating a lot of stuff that's like fighting us. And I just think it's natural, or like more whole food type stuff, and, drinking more water and just kind of working out, and having good energy, because I think when you got good energy, your body can burn more fat and all this kind of stuff. So I'm no expert, but I do think that when we try too hard to cut back, I think it's almost counterintuitive, because the body then starts storing, so.
Well, and you can't do enough.
Right.
And I think that's the trap most people find themselves in, right? For most people, again, if you're trying to be more efficient with how your body works and its ability to oxidize fat and use that as a fuel source, that only happens after a certain period of time. Like, the longer you train, the better your body utilizes it, and the better you can train it. So what happens is you get a lot of people who really want to have a better body composition, so they starve themselves. They don't have the energy to work out for long periods of time.
Right.
And working out for a long period of time is how you do that, right? And you get your aerobic work in, and 30 minutes of aerobic work probably ain't going to cut it. But if you're fueling right, hour and a half, the longer, even if you're taking in, fuel on board, which you should, you're still burning more than you would had you gone like on a fasted 30-minute run. And so I totally agree with you. People get in this trap of, under fueling and starvation, and then you can't do anything. You can't perform. And then they wonder why they get stuck. And like you said, and then your body starts to store, and you're getting more stress. Your cortisol levels go up. Like, again, like that's why you really need to be smart about it and think again about what am I trying to do here? Performance, weight loss, like, be specific, and then understand and realize you're probably gonna have to give up a little bit. If you're trying to just strictly lose weight, you're probably going to lose a little bit of performance. And so be very careful with that. Ashley Fleming, I'm such a cheapskate about bikes. What is really worth all the dollars? I have a 15-year-old Trek road bike with Tiagra. I bought a 10-year-old felt tri-bike with Ultegra this summer off Facebook Marketplace for $300 and decided I'd rather have a better road bike with aero bars. Didn't feel comfortable to shift an aero, but have so much imposter syndrome when I get to the races. What's my next upgrade? I just did my second 70.3 and thinking full in the next year or two. Thanks for everything. Yeah, I mean, who gives a fuck? Mm-hmm. If you don't want to spend a lot of money on bikes, then don't spend money on bikes. And here's the thing: is just because you see somebody at a race that spent a lot of money on their bike doesn't mean they know how to ride it. I mean, you see this at every Ironman race. You see people who drop $15,000 on a bike with $3,500 wheels, who are on a bike way too small for them or way too big. They got 20 inches of stack on the aero bars. They're sitting up, and legit, their head is like 5 inches higher than their ass. They couldn't be any more un-aero. But they just wanted an expensive bike, or you never see them in their actual aero bars. You always see them sitting up. I mean, there's story after story about this, or they don't know how to handle the bike. I mean, there's plenty of those. Like, no one's ever, especially in the age group, no one's ever won or lost a race because of their bike. Probably not even on the professional level. I would always tell people, if you got a decent frame, upgrade the components first. The first thing I would do is probably get rid of your Tiagra. That would probably be my one. Ultegra's good, but shifting is, more people have issues with shifting that ruins their races than anything. I can't shift, or my DI2 froze, or I was stuck in this gear, or my chain kept dropping. Like, that's what ruins people's races. And now you're talking about 5, 10, 15 minutes. It's not, it's not what the frame you have. So if you don't want to spend money on bikes, don't spend it. I do think you can get really great bikes in that like $1,500 to $3,000 range, $3,500 range, with a great frame, and then just upgrade components on it as you go. But yeah, if you don't want to. I bet you have, if I'm reading this right, if your imposter syndrome is that your bike isn't expensive enough, then I would imagine there's more athletes that walk in transition with overly expensive bikes that have the same imposter syndrome, that they don't feel like they're fast enough to ride the bike that they bought. But if you like what you got, I say keep it.
Yeah. I've been trying to get back into golf a little bit lately, and the clubs that I have are ones that my dad left me, and he was always into the newest, latest golf clubs, and they're very, explosive, just all the technology around it and everything like that. But I find it so hard to play with them because they're so, like, I had my grandfather's old metal shafts. Some of them might have even been wood, and that was when I was playing my best golf. I couldn't hit it as far, but I was always right down the middle. I was like consistent. And like these bikes, I have 2 of them now, and I have that first bike I got off Craigslist, that Speed Concept back in the day, aluminum, in what year was that? 2012 or 13. And I've had this new Speed Concept, and I just cannot get there with it. I don't know what it is. I've been trying to get fit on it, and it just doesn't feel right. And I've constantly thinking about going back to the old one, because every time I get out, I'm like, man, I'm comfortable. So I guess my point on this is, I think comfort, it trumps everything, especially on these races, man. If you're going to start feeling uncomfortable halfway through a 112-mile ride, that really starts taking shit out of you, And like you said, I'm sure these pros are looking for all these split, because I was thinking about, we didn't really talk about it, but at Chattanooga, Sam Long beat Beals by, it looks like 20 seconds at Chattanooga. And I mean, it's a little bit of a sidebar, but I just, because they started probably right together and rode all together. And I just can't imagine doing an Ironman, having somebody on my ass the whole day and trying to hold that off. It's just like, I mean, like all day. You're coming down, you're at the end of a marathon and you got to hold off like 15, 20 seconds or whatever. That's just, I don't know. That just blows my mind. But I'm sure these guys are looking for every little, advantage they can get. But, for most of us, it's just kind of about being able to get off that bike and feel decent.
For sure.
Yep.
Take that extra cash and go on a 10-day cruise. Yeah. Iona, there is a 90K trail run I'd like to do. How long does it take to prepare for something like that? Well, knowing you, like I do, here's a question I think a lot of people don't think through. When people say 90K trail run, you need to define what trail you're running on. Because people always think about distance. They don't think about time. A 90K trail run, because there's tons of ultras and trail runs that are on like greenways and are totally pancake flat, non-technical, no roots, no rocks, minimal elevation, or even on like, flat to rolling single track. Like that 90K is going to take you about 2 to 2.5, 3 hours less than a 90K trail run on a course with undulating terrain, very technical, rocks, roots, huge elevation. Like people always think about distance, not about how long it takes you to cover the distance based on what kind of terrain it is. You always have to like consider those things. So 90K doesn't mean like too much. It's got to be what is involved in the 90K, because that could be honestly a 2-3 month difference in how long it takes you to get ready. And then again, also remember that when people say 90K run, 100K run, 100 miler, 50 miler, unless you're in like the top 5%, you're not running the whole thing. You are walking a lot. And I also find people underestimate the impact that walking has for a long period of time, and hiking has for a long period of time on their body. And then also, like, do you have access to the terrain that you want to race at? If it's far away and your terrain is flat and it's super hilly, it's going to take a little bit longer. So all things to consider, again, when people see just like the distance, there's a lot more to take into account. But I would say anywhere between 7 to 10 months for sure of consistent training and staying healthy. I know you're on a run kick right now, so this is probably making you itch for stuff like this. But yeah, those are all details that you would need to be clear on.
Yeah, the aforementioned Bill Calkins is training for 100K right now, so we're going right through this.
Yeah, he commented below. Yeah.
And
he's on it today. He's all over it.
Yeah, so we've been he's been training consistently for 70.3s, and he just does all kinds of stuff. He's a very active guy, and one of the things we had kind of implemented was, because he kind of bit off the 100K, and we weren't really at any kind of high volume, but he's the type of guy that can figure things out. And we add cycling here. He loves swimming, and but we've been doing some incline treadmill walks and then longer runs and things like that. So I'm just trying to build up that, help him build that strength without killing him too much, because I know he's the type of guy that can get there on race day and figure it out. But yeah, he'll be doing a lot of hiking, so we're trying to do that. And again, he's a big proponent of getting on the elliptical when he's winding down at night. Just kind of sailing off into the sunset on the elliptical. So that's always been good for him. And I think it's always been a good supplement for him, actually. Bill, he likes it. It works well. He runs well, and doesn't get crushed all the time.
I love that. Last few that ended up, one for Molly Morgan. This is all you. Cold plunging to get ready for cold water race. Worth doing? How to start? How often? How long?
What's that now? Cold plunge. Sorry, I was taking note there.
That's all right. Molly Morgan asked, cold plunging to get ready for a cold. She's doing Arizona and is very, very cold water averse.
I know.
So Yeah, so she asked, yeah, that's like cold plunging, get ready for a cold water race. Is it worth doing? How to start? How often? And how long?
Man, people are going to argue the benefits of it, physiology wise, and I'm okay with that. But for me, there's no doubt in my mind that getting in cold water a lot has helped me with that sort of syndrome. I mean, like, I used to remember going down to Madison even before the race and jumping in that water and thinking, oh my God, that's so cool. It was like 71 degrees or something, and I'd be really get shocked by it. Even when we used to go out to Percy, sometimes getting in the water. But now it's just, and I think really what happened was, through short cold showers that I used to do, that's kind of how I built up. And you start with warm and then you just slowly kind of make it colder and colder and colder for 15 seconds and then move it down a little bit and stay as long as you can. And then plunging, just sitting there, because to me, it's all about being relaxed and just being like, oh, that isn't as cold as it seems or it feels like. And just being able to get in there and not be shocked, I think is just a massive advantage. I just, like this year I went down and of course I've been doing it a lot and I got in the water and it just felt beautiful. It wasn't even like ooh, I got in. I never feel that anymore, really, more than one or two strokes, no matter how cold the water is. So I definitely think there's something there.
I mean, I'm gonna flip it on this, and I'm gonna say, I wouldn't even, like, honestly go to your neighborhood Costco and walk into the freezer area where they have like the eggs and the milk and go stand in there in a t-shirt and shorts for as long as you can.
Yeah, I mean
that, like, for like a long, like I was reading a article a few weeks ago about this lady who did one of these like really, really, really ultra distance swims that was very cold water, and she had nowhere to go to train for it. She couldn't train in the water at all. So she did cold showers, and then even in the winter at like 35 to 40 degrees, she would slowly work her way down to just doing walks with gloves on, a hat, and t-shirt and shorts, and just see how long she could walk. And because to her, it was really just the overall shocking being able to tolerate the cold. So yeah, I mean, get Molly, just get John to buy you a meat locker and just go stand in there.
That's funny, man.
Before you swim. But yeah, where you live, it's hot enough already. You're gonna have a hard time finding anything cold there.
Yeah, it's such a mindset. It's funny you mentioned that because my boy Wim Hof, who people love and hate, whatever. He's got a industrial freezer at his house, and he does freezer walks with people that come visit. Just walking, they walk in circles for like 45 minutes in a freezer. It's hilarious. I don't know. I just find, like people are all, I just get so, people are, oh, that's bad for all this. And that was like, it's just so fascinating to me, man. It's just whether or not he actually does. I mean, I don't know. It's just, I love shit like that. It's just crazy.
I support that.
It's mental, man. So
totally mental.
I stand in those. Sometimes I'll go in there and I used to be like, oh my God, this is cold. But then I'll just stand there and go, this ain't bad. And then just get your head wrapped around it and you're a different person.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Let's see. What's another good one? Mark PH. How can an athlete truly determine if their lack of achievement in a race, time, place, pace, is due to particular area of undertraining, overpacing, nutrition, or just giving into pain or walking? Or to put it another way, how do I know if I'm blowing up or I'm mentally weak? Ooh. And this is what you just talked about, like, things that just like really fascinate. This topic fascinates me.
Oh yeah.
And I know you too. I think the physical blow up happens for most people is almost not self-induced. I think most physical blow ups are a response to mentally blowing up. And you see this at races all the time where athletes got nothing left. I'm in the hurt locker. I can barely move. And then something happens and you have to find the extra gear, and you find it. And I think it is something that has to be trained and explored in training. I don't think there's any way, like, you can't go back and look through your race and look through a file and download the data and like, oh, well, yeah, see right there at mile 46, he showed some mental weakness there. Like you can't do it. And there's no way to see any of that. And again, I think that's a little bit of overanalyzing, but I think I think blowing up or being mentally weak is a internal argument people go through all the time. And people thinking that I'm done or I've reached my limit. Again, it's usually your brain. It is rarely ever your actual body. It is your brain. And so, and I wouldn't say mentally weak. I just think that we have to do things more often to challenge and broaden our scale of either perceived exertion or pain, or how long you can last and sit with pain. And I think that's a skill that we are losing quickly as a human race, is our inability to withstand pain or discomfort for long periods of time.
Let's just say discomfort, because people will get mad if we say pain.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I'm going to say it. Pain. Like people are becoming resistant to being in pain. I mean, it's a fact. It's a 100% fact. People struggle with being in pain. They think it's bad for them. It's not. It is not. Like I was thinking, I don't know why I was thinking about this earlier today or what happened, but I was thinking about how I think I was somebody sent me a picture of like, all the devastation from the hurricane in these parts of the country that have like, that never get hurricanes, like Asheville, North Carolina. And, it shows all these people that are, coming together and doing these things. Like, it's funny, like people only come together like this because of pain. And like there was a photo of the Columbus Blue Jacket hockey player who was killed by the drunk driver. He was on his bike, and they were showing a picture outside of his wife's house with their 2-year-old, and all the players came with their families to celebrate their birthday, and they were brought together by pain. And you never see this. Hey, yeah, let's all go check on so and so. Let's all go to someone because they had the best day ever. We should go check on them. No. Like for whatever reason, emotional, mental, physical pain, anguish, discomfort, obstacles, hardship, catastrophes, trauma, that brings people together. It makes people feel a certain way. It empowers you and moves you to do something. Like you don't see people out there that have like, like when you don't feel sorry for people who you feel like have it all or doing nothing, but you see a person like they're struggling, you're like, I want to do something for them. And I just think like pain and discomfort, if you don't have any of those, then you are struggling. Like pain and discomfort is how we grow, is how we push ourselves. Like uncomfortable conversations, physical discomfort. Yeah. Do you always want it? Do you always need it every day? Is it always the best thing for you? No, but you sure as fuck need it. Or you are in a, like someone told me the other day that we're in a comfort crisis. And I was like, that is a perfect way to put it. And I totally believe that. So I think we have to, because the thing is like we don't even sit with pain any longer. We just get distracted or pull our phones out and distract to like even like going through and feeling certain things. Pain is a gift. Pain is 100% a gift. Now, not all pain, right? Because there's a lot of things that are, that can be inflicted on you that aren't fun, right? But and none of those are fun. But in a lot of ways, pain can be a gift in how you deal with it, how you handle it, and how you come out the other side. Like no one's ever being stupid isn't a gift. Having a life that is easy to walk with no trials and no tribulations, no obstacles, that's not a gift. We always bemoan and whine about small things, but then we want to feel like we've overcome obstacles and we've become better and we've hardened ourselves and become more resilient. But then we also wonder why we're not so resilient while we chase comfort and distraction. Pain is how you grow, and it's where you find and have your hardest conversations with others and with people and with yourself. And can I push even more? And if I can't push, why can't I? And so it's something you got to explore, and you have to explore aggressively And I don't think it's something to be afraid of. I think it's something that you should not be afraid of, and you should be willing to look in the eye and ask yourself, what can I do to get through this, and who will I become when I get to the other side?
Yeah, I mean, that's all great, man. I do agree. Back to the blow-ups. I think blow-ups are expectations a lot of times, or more unreal expectations. And I think that's a sliding scale. And I can just say that from experience because I know how sort of, we talked about having A, B, and C goals within a race before. And, the last few years I've seen like this year I thought I would swim faster and I got out and it just took a little chunk out of me, even though it was faster than my very first Ironman swim, which was one of my best races ever. I was in my mind, I kind of was like, that's not where I wanted to be. That wasn't my tri-calc thing or whatever. And then you get on the bike and halfway through the bike, you're like, I'm a little bit off here. I don't know how I'm going to make this up. And then you're kind of that A goal is gone. And then how do you embrace the B goal? And I sort of did that for a little while. Then I got to the run and I had this run walk plan. And like I talked about before, I had a goal of, 10 to 10:30 on my marathon pace. And I was nowhere near it coming out of the gate for the first 4 or 5 miles. And I knew I was kind of in trouble for that. So I kind of lost, quote unquote, my hope for, the race. And instead of staying with it and maybe manipulate an 11-minute pace, I ended up around 12 because I sort of threw in the towel on my B goal or my whatever. And I think that's what happens sometimes is because if you have expectations for something and that thing's fading away, then you kind of just start losing the drive. So it's almost like just recalibrating. All right, screw this, man. All right, I'm going to go for this now. And I think because for me, it's like when you get on that run and everyone's been there, it's just sort of like, I don't care anymore. I just want it to be over rather than having some sort of a low-hanging fruit you can kind of stick with and keep, biting off.
I love that. No, that's so true. It's an excellent point. Yeah, it's just one of those things that needs to be pushed and embraced and explored. But no, I love what you said about expectations. Well, we got a lot more questions, but we will get to them on Tuesday. You've got things to do, and I got things to do as well. So we appreciate you as always tuning in, being part of our podcast, and more importantly, being a part of our community. As always, we love you guys. We really do appreciate you. Go to our website, c26triathlon.com, and is our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you need anything from Mike, he is available. Mike at c26triathlon.com. If you need anything from me, Robbie at c26triathlon.com.
All right, man. I will catch up with you next week. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, dude. Check you later, buddy.
Go Brewers.
See you, dude.
Yeah.